Playing in tune is a constant balancing act. And when I was a young player, I did not know this. Our band director would go down the line and he'd tell us if we were sharp or flat. Of course, if we were flat, we'd want to try and make the instrument shorter and push in. The band director would hope we could. If we were sharp, we would pull out. And I would always pull out here at the mouthpiece. And then we would play again. It would sound better, and we'd go off and we'd think our band is in tune. And, you know, on that one note, our band was usually in tune. But that's really not the whole story. Everybody's instrument has different tendencies on every single note. Our internal intonation is all different. So one thing my band director didn't notice was that I was pulling out at the mouthpiece. And you know, he had a lot of people to pay attention to, so that's fine. But you don't pull out at the mouthpiece. Never pull out at the mouthpiece. I pulled out, you should pull out at the barrel. But our internal intonation really changes if we do that. If I play a C and I don't pull out, I'll sound like that. If I pull out the barrel quite a ways, I'm pulled out almost to the cork. It sounds a little bit flatter. If I play my open G in the same place, it sounds like that. If I push the barrel all the way back to where I started, it's significantly sharper. So there was a bigger change on the G, open G, than on the C. And that's because when you pull out the barrel, you change the length of the sound waves in proportion more on the top part, and the long sound waves are not changed as much. The answer to this is to pull out some at the barrel and some in the middle. And you will play better in tune from low to high and in all the different parts of your instrument. So this is very important. How do we learn how to know if we're in tune or not? How can you tell? These are the tools I use. I have a metronome that produces a drone, like this, and I have a tuner. When I was younger, I would just go sit at the piano and I would play a note on the piano and play against it, but I don't always have a piano available anymore. And so I'll play a note. It matches pretty well. Now I'm going to play an octave lower. That took a little bit of adjusting. And what I'll do is I want to train my ears and not my eyes. So I'll play the note and I'll see if I think I match the sound that I want, and then I look at the tuner. The tuner gives me the feedback of, oh, you've heard it correctly, you matched and you're good. Or the tuner will tell me, you think you sound pretty good, but you're actually a little sharp. Or you sound pretty good to yourself, but you're a little flat. And this is pretty common, happens to everybody, but what I do is then I adjust to the pitch I need to be, and the tuner tells me where I am, and then I try to memorize that sound. This is the sound of being in tune. You start with unison notes, which are the same pitch. Then you go to octaves, play an octave lower or an octave higher. Then maybe a fifth away, so if the tuner is playing a C, or the drone is playing a C, you might play a G, above and below. And gradually you learn how to tell what's in tune. Some days you will notice everything, you'll be really clear on what's in tune and what's not in tune. And other days you'll be a little confused. This is normal, it happens. Just try again the next day, and gradually you'll really be aware of when you're sharper and when you're flatter. It's important to be aware of what are the things that affect our pitch besides our own internal tendencies. Temperature is a very, very big one. When it's hot, the pitch on all the winds and brass instruments rises. When it's cold, the pitch on the same instruments drops. When we warm up in band at the beginning of the day, the clarinets warm up slower than almost everybody because the other instruments are made of metal, which warms up faster than either plastic or wood, depending on what your instrument is made of. So be aware of that. If the whole band tunes, they've gotten sharper sooner than you. So you might need to pull out a bit later. You might still rise in pitch a little bit after the band starts playing. You might need to bring your pitch down again because you weren't fully warmed up with your instrument before the tuning note took place, right? Playing loud and soft. When the clarinet plays loudly, we go flat. And when we play soft, we go sharp. And this is the opposite of every other instrument in the band. So, you need to be aware if the whole band is getting really soft, you're probably going to sound really sharp. If it's a long section of soft playing, you can pull your barrel in the middle of your instrument out for a little while and then push them back when the sound of the piece gets louder. That helps the pitch. The other thing is to practice adjusting your pitch while you're working with the tuner and the drone, and learn how to open your jaw a tiny bit to bring the sound down. The opposite is true if the whole band is playing really loud. You might need to push in for a few bars so that you don't go really flat. And likewise, work with your tuner and your drone and learn to close up just a little bit to help bring the pitch a little higher. And if you close too much, you can't play loud and it gets really tiring. So there's a very small amount of variation we want to do with our lips. Within our instrument, different notes tend to be always a little sharp, or different notes tend to be always a little bit flat. We have a link for you that leads you to a website with a diagram of which notes tend to be always sharp and which notes tend to be always flat on the clarinet. And what I would encourage you to do is check that out and use it as a reference when you're tuning in your own practice. Notice if the tendencies that are mentioned on this site are true for you and your instrument, and notice how true they are. Some notes tend to be a little sharp, some notes tend to be very sharp. So what happens then is if you're in band and you're not sure whether you're sharp or flat, but you're on a note that you know tends to be flat, you can bring it up, and usually that makes things sound better. So we don't always know right away which direction we're out of tune. We can tell that we're out of tune more easily than which direction sometimes. But if you have some knowledge about which notes have certain tendencies or certain directions, you can still play better in tune and think it through, and gradually it becomes more automatic. Your ears will just help your body do what they need to do. It's kind of